My name is Thomas McCarthy, and for 56 years, I've kept a secret that's been eating me alive. What I'm about to tell you happened in the jungles of Vietnam when I was 20 years old. 5 men went down in that helicopter. Only one came home. The others? Well, let me tell you about the choices I made in that green hell, and why I've never slept peacefully since. This is their story. And mine. You know, I never told this story. Not to my wife of 48 years, not to my kids, not to the therapists the VA kept sending me to. But sitting here in my kitchen this morning, watching that news helicopter circle the accident on Route 33, something broke loose inside me. Maybe it's because I'm 76 now, and the sound of those rotors doesn't make me dive under tables anymore. Maybe it's because most of the boys who'd understand are already gone. The thing about Vietnam that nobody tells you is how green everything was. Not the pretty green of Ohio cornfields in summer, but a thick, choking green that swallowed light and sound and hope. When you're 20 years old and flying door gunner on a Huey, you spend a lot of time staring down into that green, wondering what's looking back up at you. It was October 15th, 1969, when our world fell apart. I remember because Danny Kowalski had been counting days on his helmet liner. He had 43 left on his tour. We all knew each other's numbers. Bull Rodriguez, our sergeant, had 96 days left, and a baby girl in San Antonio he'd never met. Spider Washington was extending for 6 more months, because he said Detroit was more dangerous than Vietnam. Billy Thompson, our youngest at 18, still wrote letters to his mama every Sunday without fail. We were flying resupply to Firebase Charlie, deep in the jungle near the Cambodian border. Intelligence said the area was cold. No enemy activity for weeks. Intelligence was wrong. It usually was. I can still feel that moment when the first RPG streaked past our nose, close enough that the heat made the air shimmer. Captain Hayes yanked the stick hard left, and my M60 was suddenly pointing at treetops instead of sky. Then came the sound. A metallic shriek that meant metal was coming apart where it shouldn't. "We're going down!" Hayes screamed over the intercom, and suddenly the green wasn't below us anymore. It was rushing up to meet us, branches snapping against the rotors like rifle shots, the smell of aviation fuel and burning oil filling the cabin. That was 56 years ago, but I can still taste the fear in my mouth. Metallic and sharp, like biting down on aluminum foil. Some things time doesn't heal. It just teaches you how to carry them without falling down. The helicopter hit the jungle floor, and everything I thought I knew about myself died with that impact. That morning started like most others at Firebase Alpha. The monsoon had broken 2 days earlier, and steam was rising off the metal roofing of our hooches when Reveille sounded at 05:30. I was cleaning my M60 when Bull found me, already suited up for flight. "Morning, Doc," he said, using the nickname that stuck after I'd patched up half the company during the Tet Offensive. "We got a milk run today. Charlie needs beans and bullets." "Where are we headed, Sarge?" I asked, running the cleaning rod through my machine gun barrel one more time. "Grid Square Tango 74, about 40 clicks northwest." Bull lit a cigarette with hands that never shook, no matter what. "Hayes is flying, and we're taking the new bird. She's got fresh armor plating." Spider wandered over, already wearing his lucky baseball cap backwards. 40 clicks? That's practically Cambodia, man. You sure intelligence got their heads screwed on straight? Since when do they ever? Bull laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. He'd been in country 14 months, long enough to know that easy missions had a way of going sideways. Danny was hunched over his radio, fine-tuning the frequencies. Kid was barely 19, but could coax signals out of that PRC-25 like it was magic. "Bull, I'm getting some weird chatter on the enemy frequencies. Might be nothing, but..." There's always chatter, Kowalski. Don't let it spook you. Bull flicked his cigarette into the mud. Where's Farm Boy? Right here, Sergeant. Billy came jogging up, grinning like he was heading to a county fair instead of a combat zone. The kid from Kentucky had been with us 3 months and still acted like this was all some grand adventure. Got a letter from Mama yesterday. She sent cookies, but they're mostly crumbs now. Y'all want some? Save 'em for the flight, Spider said. Might be the last decent food we see today. Aw, come on, Spider. You always think the worst, Billy protested. It's just a supply run. We'll be back by chow time. Spider gave him a look that could cut glass. Kid, the day you stop expecting the worst is the day Vietnam kills you. Captain Hayes appeared, flight helmet tucked under his arm. At 28, he was ancient by our standards, a career soldier who'd been flying Hueys since before most of us could shave. Mount up, gentlemen. Weather's clear, and I want to get this done before the afternoon thermals kick in. We walked toward the helicopter, our boots squelching in the red mud. The Huey sat there like a green metal dragonfly, rotors drooping in the humid air. Hayes had named her Pegasus, after some Greek horse with wings. Said she'd carry us all home safe. Bull stopped at the cargo door and turned to face us. Listen up. This is routine, but routine's when people get sloppy. Danny, keep that radio hot. Spider, eyes peeled on approach and departure. Doc, make sure your aid bag's stocked. Billy, try not to shoot any water buffalo. Roger that, Sarge, we all said, almost in unison. If I'd known what was waiting for us in that green hell, I'd have never climbed aboard. The flight started smooth as silk. Hayes lifted us off at 800 sharp, the Huey climbing through the morning mist like she owned the sky. I was manning the left door gun, watching the jungle scroll beneath us in an endless carpet of green. Firebase Alpha shrank to a brown dot, then disappeared entirely. Beautiful morning for flying, Hayes said over the intercom, his voice crackling through our headsets. Every morning's beautiful when you're not walking through that mess down there, Spider replied from his position at the right door. Danny was hunched over his radio, headphones pressed tight against his ears. Still picking up that chatter, Sarge. It's getting stronger as we head northwest. What kind of chatter? Bull asked, leaning forward from his seat. Can't make out much. Sounds like movement reports, grid coordinates. Danny's voice was tight with concern. They might be tracking aircraft. Relax, Kowalski, Bull said, but I caught him checking his M16. Intelligence cleared this route yesterday. Billy was staring out at the jungle, mesmerized. Look at all those trees. Bet there's places down there no humans ever stepped foot. Yeah, and let's keep it that way, I muttered, adjusting my grip on the M60. We were 30 minutes out from Firebase Charlie when everything went wrong. I saw it first, a flash of light from the tree line below, followed by a streak of white smoke climbing toward us. RPG! Breaking left! Hayes screamed, throwing the Huey into a violent turn that pressed us against the cabin walls. The rocket-propelled grenade missed us by inches, close enough that I felt the heat wash over my face. Then came the second one. Taking fire! Taking fire! Danny was shouting into his radio. Mayday! Mayday! This is Pegasus 6-7. We are under attack. The second RPG didn't miss. It slammed into our tail rotor with the sound of the world ending. A metallic shriek, followed by the terrible whine of damaged machinery. The Huey immediately started spinning, the jungle below becoming a green blur. I'm losing her! Hayes fought the controls, sweat streaming down his face. Everybody hang on. How bad is it? Bull demanded. Tail rotor's gone. We're going down hard. Spider grabbed his rifle and started spraying the jungle below. There! Muzzle flashes at 2 o'clock. Billy looked terrified, his face white as paper. Are we gonna die, Sarge? Not today, farm boy, Bull said, but his voice was shaking. Doc, Get ready for casualties. I was already pulling my aid bag closer, checking the morphine syrets. The jungle was rushing up fast now, individual trees becoming visible through the spinning chaos. "Brace for impact!" Hayes screamed. The last thing I remember before we hit was Danny still trying to call for help, his voice cutting through the static. "Pegasus 6-7 going down! Grid Tango 749er! We're going down!" Then came the crash. Metal screaming, trees snapping, the world turning upside down. The smell of aviation fuel mixed with jungle rot, the taste of blood in my mouth, and silence. Terrible, deafening silence where the rotor noise used to be. When I opened my eyes, everything had changed forever. I came to hanging upside down, still strapped in my seat. Blood was dripping from somewhere on my scalp, and my left shoulder felt like someone had driven a spike through it. The Huey had rolled onto her side, rotors twisted into metal spaghetti. "Sound off!" Bull's voice cut through the ringing in my ears. Thank God he was alive. "Doc here," I croaked, fumbling with my harness. "Banged up, but mobile." "Spider's good," came the reply from somewhere in the wreckage. "Got a face full of glass, but I can see." "Billy," Bull called out. No answer. "Billy!" "I'm here, Sarge." His voice was weak, scared. "My leg's trapped under something. Can't move it." I could hear Danny moaning near the radio equipment. Hayes wasn't making any sound at all. "Captain?" Bull was crawling toward the cockpit. "Hayes, you with us?" I managed to get free and immediately went to Danny. His face was covered in blood from a gash across his forehead, but his eyes were tracking. "Radio's shot to hell, Doc. Can't raise anybody." "Don't worry about that now." I started checking him for other injuries. "Can you move your arms and legs?" "Yeah, but my head feels like it's gonna explode." Bull's voice was grim from the cockpit. "Hayes didn't make it. Broke his neck in the impact." The words hit us like a physical blow. Captain Hayes, who'd promised to get us all home safe, was dead. Our ticket out of this green hell was gone. "We gotta move," Spider said, pulling glass fragments from his cheek. "Those bastards who shot us down? They heard us crash. They're coming." "How do you know?" Billy asked, panic creeping into his voice. "Because that's what I'd do." Spider was already grabbing his rifle. "Bull, we can't stay here." Bull emerged from the cockpit, shaking his head. "He's right. This bird's a beacon. Every NVA unit in 10 clicks knows exactly where we are." I was working to free Billy's leg from the twisted metal. "Give me 2 minutes. His ankle might be broken, but he can walk." "Doc, we don't have 2 minutes," Spider hissed. "Listen." We all went quiet. In the distance, barely audible over the settling metal and dripping fuel, came voices. Vietnamese voices. Getting closer. "They're already here," Bull whispered, chambering around. "Everybody grab what you can carry. We're moving into the bush. Now." The hunter had just become the hunted. We moved like ghosts through the jungle, Spider leading the way with an instinct that amazed me. The kid from Detroit navigated that green maze like he'd grown up in it, reading signs in broken branches and disturbed earth that the rest of us couldn't even see. "Hold up," he whispered, raising his fist. We all froze. Voices, maybe 200 meters behind us. Billy was limping badly, trying not to whimper with each step. I'd fashioned a crude splint from helicopter debris, but his ankle was definitely broken. "How much further, Sarge?" "As far as it takes, farm boy." Bull's tone had changed. The protective father figure was gone, replaced by pure survival instinct. "Doc, what's our medical situation?" I did a quick mental inventory. 1 morphine syringe left, some bandages, antiseptic for maybe 2 more wound cleanings. That's it. "What about Billy's ankle?" Bull asked. I looked at the kid, then back at Bull. "He needs real medical attention." "Soon. I can make it," Billy said through gritted teeth. "Don't leave me behind." Spider had moved ahead to scout, returning within minutes. Bad news. I count at least 6, maybe 8 enemy soldiers working a search pattern. They're good, spreading out, covering ground systematically. How long before they find our trail? Bull asked. Hour, maybe less. This kid's blood drops are easy to follow. Spider nodded toward Billy, who was leaving a crimson trail despite my best efforts to bandage his wounds. Danny was struggling with the broken radio, desperately trying to coax life from the damaged equipment. If I could just get one clear transmission. Forget the radio, Bull snapped. We're on our own. No, wait, Danny's voice cracked with excitement. I'm getting something. Faint, but it's there. We all held our breath as he adjusted the dials. Static filled the air. Then a voice. American. Speaking call signs and coordinates. Any station, this is Dustoff 7-2. Medical evacuation bird looking for survivors of Pegasus 6-7. Over. Danny keyed the handset with shaking fingers. Dustoff 7-2. This is Pegasus 6-7 survivor. 5 souls alive. 1 KIA. Grid approximately Tango 749er. We are being pursued by hostile forces. Over. Nothing but static. They didn't hear us, Danny said, his voice breaking. Signals too weak. Bull made a decision that would haunt us all. Spider, you're point man now. Find us somewhere to hide and set up a perimeter. We're gonna have to outlast them until that radio gets stronger or rescue finds us. How long? I asked. Bull's face was stone. However long it takes. We'd been moving for 3 hours when Billy stepped wrong. His scream cut through the jungle like a knife, and we all hit the deck, thinking we were under fire. What happened? Bull hissed, crawling toward the sound. Billy was on the ground, clutching his good leg. Blood was seeping through his fingers. Something sharp, he gasped. Went right through my boot. I got to him first and saw what we were dealing with. A sharpened bamboo stake, maybe 8 inches long, had punched clean through his boot and out the other side. Punji stick, the kind of trap the Viet Cong scattered through the jungle like deadly seeds. Ah, hell, Spider muttered, keeping watch while I examined the wound. Kid found himself a punji pit. How bad is it, Doc? Bull asked. I tried to keep my voice steady, but inside I was screaming. The stake had gone through muscle and possibly nicked bone. In a field hospital, this would mean surgery, antibiotics, weeks of recovery. Out here, with 1 morphine syringe and some bandages, it was a potential death sentence. It's bad, Bull. Real bad. I started cutting away Billy's boot. The bamboo's probably contaminated with everything nasty you can imagine. Without proper antibiotics. Don't say it, Billy whispered, tears mixing with sweat on his face. Please don't say it. Danny was still fighting with the radio, getting more desperate by the minute. Come on, you piece of junk. Work! Danny, keep it down, Spider warned. Sound carries out here. I don't care, Danny's voice cracked with hysteria. We're gonna die out here anyway. Billy's gonna die. We're all gonna die. Bull grabbed Danny by the shirt. Get hold of yourself, soldier. You fall apart. We all fall apart. But look at him. Danny pointed at Billy, who was trying not to scream as I worked the bamboo free. He can barely walk on 1 leg. Now this? How are we supposed to carry him and stay ahead of Charlie? The question hung in the air like poison gas. I had the morphine in my hand. Our last dose. Billy needed it desperately, but so might someone else before this was over. The ethical training they'd given me as a medic never covered rationing pain relief among friends who were dying. Give him the shot, Doc, Bull said quietly. That's our last one. I know. Bull's eyes met mine. But he's hurting now. We'll deal with later when later comes. I injected the morphine and watched Billy's face relax as the drug took hold. I'd just used up our last mercy, And we still had God knows how many days left in this green hell. By dawn of the second day, Danny had completely lost it. We'd found shelter in a cluster of fallen trees, but sleep was impossible with enemy patrols still searching. Danny sat rocking back and forth, the dead radio clutched to his chest like a security blanket. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered, his voice raw from crying. "I want to go home." "I want my mom." "We all want to go home," Bull said, trying to keep his voice gentle. "But we stick together. That's how we survive." "No!" Danny's voice cracked with desperation. "They're gonna find us anyway. Maybe if I surrender, tell them where you are, they'll let me live. Send me to a prison camp or something." Spider grabbed Danny by the throat. "You say that again, and I'll kill you myself. You understand me? Get off him." I pulled Spider away. "He's shell-shocked. He doesn't mean it." "The hell he doesn't." Spider's eyes were wild with rage. "Soon as Charlie gets their hands on him, he'll sing like a canary. Tell them everything. How many of us, what weapons we got, which direction we're heading." Bull was thinking, weighing options none of us wanted to consider. "Maybe we should split up. 2 groups move faster than 5. "Split up?" Billy looked terrified despite the morphine. "Sarge, please don't leave me." "Nobody's leaving anybody," I said, but even I wasn't sure I believed it anymore. "Doc's right," Bull decided. "We stay together. Danny, you listen to me good. I know you're scared. We're all scared. But you run off, you're dead within an hour. These Jungle Boys don't take prisoners from downed aircraft." Danny looked up with hollow eyes. "How do you know that?" "Because I've seen what they do to pilots they capture." Bull's voice went cold. "You want details?" "No," Danny whispered. Spider was pacing like a caged animal. "Bull, we're moving too slow." "Billy can barely walk. Danny's worthless. And we got maybe 2 days of water left." "What are you saying?" I asked, though I already knew. "I'm saying hard choices are coming. Real hard choices." Spider stared at Billy, who was fading in and out of consciousness. "Kid's ankle's infected. Look at those red streaks going up his leg. Even if we get rescued tomorrow, he might not make it." Bull closed his eyes. "We don't leave people behind." "Sometimes you have to." Spider's words hit like hammer blows. Sometimes saving everybody means losing everybody. The jungle seemed to press closer around us, as if it was listening to our whispered arguments about who deserved to live. On the 3rd day, they found us. Spider had been out scouting for water when he came crashing back through the underbrush, his face streaming with sweat and blood. "Contact! 300 meters northeast." He dove behind our makeshift log barricade. 4, maybe 5 NVA. They're working a grid search. "How long before they get here?" Bull asked, checking his rifle. 10 minutes, maybe less." Spider winced as he touched a gash on his forehead. "I had to take out their point man. They know we're close now." Danny started hyperventilating. "Oh, God! Oh, God! They're gonna kill us all!" "Danny, shut up!" Bull hissed. "Billy, can you shoot?" Billy tried to lift his M16, but his hands were shaking uncontrollably. The infection from his ankle had spread, and fever was making him delirious. "I can't hold it steady, Sarge." "Doc, get ready to move him," Bull ordered. "Soon as this goes loud, we're falling back deeper into the jungle." The first shots came without warning. Automatic rifle fire ripped through the trees above our heads, showering us with bark and leaves. I grabbed Billy and started dragging him toward the fallback position. "There! Muzzle flash at 10 o'clock!" Spider was returning fire, his M16 chattering in short, controlled bursts. Bull flanked left, using military tactics that seemed impossible in the thick jungle. "I see 2 more, moving to flank us." A grenade exploded 20 feet away, close enough to ring my ears and fill my mouth with dirt. Billy screamed as shrapnel tore into his already mangled leg. "We gotta go! Now!" Spider was laying down covering fire, but we were outnumbered and outgunned. That's when Danny snapped completely. Instead of running with us, he stood up in the middle of the firefight, hands raised above his head. "Don't shoot! I surrender! Chiu hoi! Chiu hoi!" "Danny, get down!" I screamed. But it was too late. The enemy soldiers cut him down without hesitation. His body jerked like a marionette as the bullets hit him, then he crumpled into the jungle floor. "They killed him," Billy whispered in shock. "They just killed him. Move! Move! Move!" Bull was pushing us deeper into the green hell, but Spider wasn't with us anymore. I looked back and saw him lying motionless behind the logs, blood pooling beneath his head. We'd lost 2 men in 30 seconds, and Bull was hit too, blood seeping through his shirt from somewhere I couldn't see. The jungle had just claimed half our brotherhood, and we were barely alive to mourn them. We'd been running for an hour when Bull collapsed. Blood was flowing freely from a bullet wound in his side, and his face had gone the color of old paper. "I need a minute," he gasped, leaning against a tree. Just a minute." Billy was barely conscious, his weight nearly dead on my shoulders. The infection had spread up his leg in angry red lines, and his breathing was shallow and fast. I knew the signs. Sepsis was setting in. "Bull, we can't stop here," I whispered. "They're still tracking us." "I know." Bull tried to stand but couldn't. "Doc, I need you to listen to me real careful. Save your strength." "No, listen." Bull grabbed my arm with surprising force. "Billy's dying. We both know it. And I'm not going to make it much farther with this hole in my gut." "Don't say that." "Look at me, Tommy." It was the first time he'd used my real name instead of Doc. "You're the only one who's got a chance. You're strong, you're smart, and you don't have any holes in you yet." Billy stirred in my arms, his fever-bright eyes trying to focus. "Sarge, are we going home now?" Bull's voice broke. "Yeah, farm boy. Real soon." "I can't leave you," I said. "Either of you." "You have to." Bull was crying now, tears cutting tracks through the dirt on his face. "My baby girl in San Antonio? She needs to know her daddy tried to come home. Your mama in Ohio? She needs her boy to walk through that door. Bull, please. That's an order, soldier." Bull tried to smile but winced with pain instead. "Take my dog tags. Take Billy's too. Tell their families. Tell them we died fighting, not running." Billy's hand found mine, weak but insistent. "Tommy, you tell my mama I wasn't scared at the end, okay? Tell her I was thinking about home. I can't do this." My voice was barely a whisper. "You can." Bull pulled out his .45 pistol and pressed it into my hands. "Because if you don't, we all die for nothing. And those bastards who shot down our bird? They win." I heard voices in the distance. Vietnamese voices, getting closer. "Go," Bull whispered. "Go now, before I change my mind and make us all stay here to die together." I stood up, leaving my brothers behind in that green hell, carrying nothing but their dog tags and a weight that would crush my soul for the next 56 years. I ran through that jungle like the devil himself was chasing me, and maybe he was. Behind me, I could hear gunshots, 2 quick pops from Bull's .45, then silence. He'd kept his promise to Billy and himself. They wouldn't be taken alive. For 3 days, I moved like a ghost through the green hell, drinking muddy water from bomb craters and eating nothing but fear. The dog tags around my neck felt heavier than anchor chains. Bull's blood was still under my fingernails. Billy's last words echoed in my head every time I closed my eyes. On the 6th day, I heard them. Helicopters in the distance. The beautiful whomp 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 of American rotors cutting through jungle air. I'd never heard a more beautiful sound in my life. "Please," I whispered to whatever god might be listening in that god-forsaken place, "please let them find me." But I was deep in triple canopy jungle, invisible from above. The helicopters circled for what felt like hours, their sound growing closer, then farther, then closer again. I could hear them calling on radio frequencies I couldn't answer. "Any survivors of Pegasus 6-7? Any survivors? This is Dustoff 7-2. We are in your area. Signal your position if you can hear this transmission." I had no radio, no flares, no way to signal except my voice, which wouldn't carry above the tree line. Desperation made me crazy. I started climbing the tallest tree I could find, using vines and broken branches, my hands bleeding from the rough bark. 30 feet up, I could see patches of sky through the canopy. The helicopters were there, 2 Hueys circling maybe half a mile away. So close I could almost touch them, but they might as well have been on the moon. Then I heard something that made my blood freeze. Voices below me. Vietnamese voices. The enemy patrol had caught up to me again, drawn by the helicopter noise just like I was. I was trapped 40 feet up a tree, with nowhere to run, watching my rescue flying away while enemy soldiers gathered at the base of my hiding spot. They hadn't seen me yet, but it was only a matter of time. The helicopters were already moving away, their sound fading like hope itself dying. "Don't leave me," I whispered into the wind. "Please don't leave me here alone." But the jungle swallowed my words like it had swallowed everything else. My friends, my innocence, my faith that good guys always win in the end. The enemy soldiers were directly beneath me now, pointing up into the canopy. One of them raised his rifle, and I knew my time was up. Then, like a miracle from heaven, the helicopters came back. "There! Movement in the trees!" the voice crackled from a loudspeaker mounted on the lead Huey. "Survivor spotted!" The door gunner opened up with his M60, rounds ripping through the jungle around the NVA soldiers. They scattered for cover, but they weren't giving up. Return fire sparked from multiple positions, green tracers streaking up toward the helicopters. "This is Dustoff 7-2, the pilot's voice boomed through the chaos. "Survivor, if you can hear this, we're coming down. Get ready to move." The Huey descended through the canopy like an angel of mercy, rotors snapping branches, downwash creating a hurricane of leaves and debris. The skids touched down in a small clearing 50 yards from my tree. "Go! Go! Go!" someone screamed from the helicopter. I half fell, half climbed down that tree, bark tearing skin from my palms. Bullets whined past my head as I hit the ground running. The NVA soldiers were closing in from 3 sides, their AK-47s chattering death songs. "Over here! This way!" A door gunner was laying down covering fire, his tracers keeping the enemy at bay. I ran harder than I'd ever run in my life, Bull's dog tags bouncing against my chest, Billy's last words driving my legs forward. 20 yards. 15. 10. A bullet caught me in the shoulder, spinning me around, but I kept running. The crew chief reached out and grabbed my arm, hauling me into the helicopter just as the pilot pulled pitch. "We got him! We got him!" someone was shouting, but it sounded far away. As we lifted off, I looked down through the door and saw them, Bull and Billy, lying where I'd left them 3 days ago. The jungle had already started to claim them, vines creeping over their bodies like green shrouds. "I'm sorry," I whispered, but my words were lost in the rotor noise. The medic was working on my shoulder, but I barely felt it. "What's your name, son?" "Thomas McCarthy, door gunner, Pegasus 6-7. "You're gonna be okay now," he said. "You're going home?" But even as the jungle fell away beneath us, I knew I'd never really leave that place. Part of me would always be there, watching my brothers die while I lived. That was 56 years ago, but I still wake up some nights hearing Bull's voice telling me to run. I still taste that metallic fear when helicopters fly overhead. The VA doctors had fancy names for what was wrong with me: survivor's guilt, post-traumatic stress disorder, moral injury. But I knew the truth was simpler and more terrible than their textbooks could explain. I came home to a country that didn't want to hear war stories, so I buried mine deep, married my high school sweetheart Sarah, raised 3 kids, and worked 30 years at the Ford plant without ever telling anyone what really happened in that jungle. I became the man who fixed things with his hands because my mind was too broken to trust. But secrets have weight, and I carried Bull's dog tags in my toolbox every day for 5 decades. When my grandson asked me about Vietnam for his school report last year, I almost told him the truth. Almost. Instead, I said I was a helicopter mechanic who never saw combat. The lie came so easily, it scared me. Yesterday, I finally drove to the post office and mailed a package. Inside were 3 letters I'd written and rewritten 100 times. One to Maria Rodriguez in San Antonio, telling her how her father Bull died protecting his men. One to Catherine Thompson in Kentucky, explaining that her boy Billy died thinking of home and wasn't scared at the end. The third went to Janet Washington in Detroit, describing how Spider saved us all with his courage and street smarts. I included their dog tags with each letter. Pieces of them I'd carried like sacred relics, too afraid to let go. The hardest part wasn't writing about how they died. It was explaining why I lived, how I ran when they couldn't, how I chose survival over brotherhood, how I've spent 56 years wondering if I was a coward or a survivor, and never finding an answer that let me sleep peacefully. But telling you this story, saying their names out loud, remembering them as the young men they were, instead of the ghosts they became, maybe that's enough. Maybe that's how I finally come home from Vietnam. Bull Rodriguez, Danny Kowalski, James Spider Washington, Billy Thompson, Captain Hayes. They were 20 years old, and they died in a place most Americans can't find on a map, for reasons nobody remembers anymore. I lived. I don't know why, but I lived. And now their story lives too.